Have you ever felt drained, exhausted, or emotionally battered by someone you love, someone you care about? It's tough, especially when that person is family or a close friend. But sometimes, as hard as it may be, we need to cut ties for our own well-being. Stoic philosophy teaches us that not all relationships are meant to last forever, and that our peace of mind should never be compromised. So, how do you know when it's time to cut ties? Well, today we'll uncover the 9 signs you should pay attention to, and we'll explore how Stoicism can guide you through those tough decisions. In this video, we're diving deep into Stoic wisdom and how it can be used to assess your relationships. Cutting ties is never easy, but understanding when to let go can lead to a better life, free of unnecessary emotional baggage. We'll look at 9 key signs that may indicate it's time to sever ties, even with people you care deeply about. Stick with us till the end, and we'll also explore how Stoicism empowers us to make these decisions with grace and wisdom. Toxicity of relationships. Toxic relationships are incredibly harmful to our emotional and mental well-being. They drain our energy, diminish our self-worth, and often manipulate us into a cycle of guilt, self-doubt, and frustration. These relationships are like a slow poison, taking a toll on our lives in ways that we may not initially recognize. It's often only after we take a step back that we realize just how much of an impact the toxicity of a particular relationship has had on our overall health, happiness, and peace of mind. The root of toxicity in the Stoic tradition. The emphasis is on maintaining control over what is within our own power and accepting that we cannot control the behavior of others. According to Stoicism, it's essential to recognize that we can't change or fix other people's behavior. We can only change our reaction to it. This insight gives us the power to detach emotionally from toxic people, understanding that their actions do not define us and should not have the power to upset our peace of mind. Toxic individuals often don't respect boundaries and may manipulate situations to serve their own needs. They might prey on your kindness, your empathy, or your desire to help. Often, these individuals draw you into unnecessary drama, making you feel like you are responsible for their emotional state or problems. They might criticize or belittle you, or trip you into complying with their demands, all of which gradually erode your sense of self-worth. The Stoics would argue that we must constantly protect our inner peace. For them, peace of mind was the ultimate goal, not wealth, not fame, but the ability to be in control of our emotions, thoughts, and responses. Epictetus taught that we should not be disturbed by the actions of others, especially when those actions are outside of our control. Why practicing detachment? We can avoid falling into the trap of emotional turmoil caused by toxic relationships. Recognizing toxicity. It's essential to be able to identify the signs of a toxic person before their influence takes a deeper toll on your life. These individuals often exhibit patterns of behavior that can be detrimental to your well-being. The most obvious of these signs is a lack of respect for your boundaries. A toxic person often doesn't respect personal space or emotional boundaries. They may demand your time, energy, and attention without considering your own needs. This can be exhausting, especially if you feel like you're always giving and never receiving. Another hallmark of toxicity is manipulation. A toxic individual might twist the truth, use guilt to get what they want, or play on your emotions to elicit sympathy. This behavior is designed to make you feel responsible for their happiness or problems. If you're constantly trying to please someone at the expense of your own needs, this is a clear sign that the relationship is unhealthy. The Stoic approach to detaching from toxic relationships. The Stoics recognize that we can't control how others act, but we can control how we react to them. This concept of emotional detachment is crucial when it comes to dealing with toxic relationships. By removing ourselves emotionally from the situation, we can observe the behavior without being swept up in it. This perspective allows us to stay calm and rational, even when faced with manipulative or hurtful actions from others. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, often reflected on how to maintain a sense of inner calm in the face of external chaos. He wrote, "If someone does wrong, it is because they are acting in a way that aligns with their own nature, and that's not something we can control." This understanding helped him to separate his peace from the actions of others, and it's a principle that we can all apply when dealing with toxic people. Instead of getting wrapped up in their drama, we can choose to step back, maintain our composure, and set healthy boundaries. Protecting your inner peace. One of the most critical Stoic teachings is the importance of safeguarding our internal state. While we can't control external events or other people's behavior, we can control our thoughts, actions, and reactions. By practicing mindfulness, self-awareness, and emotional regulation, we can protect our mental and emotional well-being from external sources of negativity. The Stoics also emphasized the value of rationality. We are naturally inclined to react emotionally to toxic behavior, but Stoicism urges us to step back and examine our emotional reactions. Are our feelings a result of the other person's actions, or are we allowing ourselves to be manipulated? Are we seeking approval from this toxic individual, even when it undermines our sense of self-worth? By asking these questions, we begin to take back control over our emotions. Instead of becoming emotionally entangled in a toxic relationship, we can acknowledge the other person's behavior for what it is and make a conscious decision not to let it affect our state of mind. This doesn't mean we become cold or indifferent. It simply means we protect ourselves from emotional harm by not allowing toxic behavior to dictate our emotional responses. When to let go. Stoicism teaches us that attachment to anything, whether it's material possessions or even relationships, can be a source of suffering. If we become too attached to a toxic relationship, we may feel like we are trapped or obligated to continue enduring the pain. However, Stoics remind us that the ability to let go is a sign of strength, not weakness. Letting go of someone who is consistently toxic, even if they are family or a close friend, is sometimes the best thing we can do for our own well-being. Cutting ties with someone doesn't mean we wish them harm or that we are abandoning them. It simply means we are prioritizing our peace, mental health, and personal growth. It is possible to love someone from a distance, and it is sometimes necessary to step away from a toxic relationship to preserve our own well-being. Stoicism provides a powerful framework for dealing with toxic relationships. By recognizing when a relationship is harmful, practicing emotional detachment, and protecting our inner peace, we can navigate even the most challenging interpersonal dynamics with grace and wisdom. Cutting ties with toxic people, even when they are close to us, is a difficult but sometimes necessary step in maintaining our emotional and mental health. The Stoic approach empowers us to make these decisions with clarity, rationality, and strength, ensuring that we prioritize our own well-being without guilt or regret. Disrespect and betrayal. Disrespect and betrayal can be some of the most painful experiences in any relationship. These acts leave deep emotional scars and can shatter trust, which is often the foundation of any meaningful connection. Betrayal is not just about being deceived or lied to, but it can also encompass situations where someone undermines your values, exploits your vulnerabilities, or simply disregards your needs and feelings. In Stoic philosophy, it is taught that while we cannot control the actions of others, we have full control over how we respond to them. Stoicism teaches us that the opinions of others, their betrayals, and their disrespect are external events that we cannot control. What we can control is how we choose to respond. This empowers us to maintain our peace, even in the face of betrayal or mistreatment. The Stoic view on betrayal. For Stoic philosophers, betrayal is not just a personal injury, but a call for introspection. Marcus Aurelius, one of the most famous Stoic philosophers, often reflected on the actions of others as a reflection of their nature. In his Meditations, he wrote, "When someone does wrong, it is because they are acting in accordance with their own nature, and we should not let their actions affect us negatively." This insight teaches us that the wrongdoer's behavior is an expression of their own character, and we do not need to internalize or absorb their negativity. Betrayal, for the Stoics, is part of the human condition. It's a reflection of the imperfection in human nature. Stoicism suggests that we accept this reality without harboring resentment or anger. When someone betrays us, they reveal their character and their true nature, but this does not need to define our reaction or disturb our internal peace. We can choose to observe the situation from a rational standpoint, recognizing that their actions are not a reflection of our worth. Emotional detachment from betrayal. One of the most important Stoic principles is the concept of emotional detachment. This does not mean that we become indifferent to the suffering caused by betrayal. Rather, it means that we do not allow our emotions to be controlled by the actions of others. The Stoic idea of detachment involves separating our sense of self-worth from the opinions and actions of others. Betrayal can stir up deep emotional responses like anger, sadness, and hurt. Stoicism teaches us not to suppress these feelings, but rather to acknowledge them and examine them rationally. We can choose how to respond to these emotions by understanding that they arise from our attachment to the relationship and our expectations of loyalty. The Stoics believed that we should not rely on external circumstances for our happiness. Instead, we should cultivate an inner resilience that allows us to face betrayal with equanimity. Recognizing patterns of disrespect in a relationship can take many forms, from belittling remarks to neglecting boundaries or ignoring your needs. Over time, patterns of disrespect can erode the foundation of any relationship. In Stoic terms, disrespect is a form of irrational behavior. The Stoics believed in the importance of rationality and self-control in all aspects of life, and they saw disrespect as a sign of immaturity and irrational thinking. When you notice that someone continually disrespects you, whether it's through dismissiveness, belittling comments, or dishonesty, it's important to evaluate the situation from a Stoic perspective. In this sense, respect becomes an essential measure of the health of a relationship. Stoics suggest that we should not tolerate disrespect, not because we are seeking revenge or retaliation, but because we are protecting our dignity and inner peace. The power of letting go. While Stoicism encourages forgiveness and understanding, it also advocates for the protection of one's inner peace. When someone repeatedly disrespects or betrays you, it may be time to let go of the relationship for the sake of your emotional health. Marcus Aurelius often wrote about the need to accept what is beyond our control, and sometimes that includes accepting that a relationship may no longer serve us in a positive way. The act of letting go is not one of weakness, but of strength. Stoicism teaches us to avoid attachment to external things or people for our happiness. When a relationship becomes toxic or disrespectful, holding on to it can prevent us from growing and attaining the peace that Stoicism values. Cutting ties with someone who continuously disrespects or betrays you allows you to preserve your dignity, focus on your own growth, and move forward with wisdom and clarity. Stoicism and moving on. The Stoic approach to betrayal is about reclaiming your power and moving forward with a calm and rational mindset. Betrayal does not define who you are, nor does it diminish your value. Stoicism provides the tools to recognize that someone else's actions are a reflection of them, not you. By practicing emotional detachment, forgiveness, and rational acceptance, you free yourself from the burden of bitterness or resentment. This gives you the space to heal and grow without being chained to the past.in practice. Moving on from a betrayal means not allowing it to affect your future. Stoicism encourages us to focus on the present moment and take actions that align with our values. It teaches us that we are not victims of our circumstances, but agents of our own destiny. Betrayal, while painful, can be a powerful teacher, showing us the importance of setting clear boundaries, of knowing when to let go, and of taking responsibility for our emotional state. In the Stoic view, betrayal is an inevitable part of human life, but it does not need to define our emotional or mental state. Stoicism teaches us how to respond to disrespect and betrayal with grace, rationality, and emotional resilience. By understanding that the actions of others do not define us, and by practicing emotional detachment, we can move beyond the pain of betrayal and regain our inner peace. Letting go of relationships that no longer serve our growth is an act of self-respect and wisdom, allowing us to focus on what truly matters: our own peace, dignity, and continued personal development. 3. Unhealthy dependence. Unhealthy dependence in relationships is one of the most insidious factors that can lead to emotional burnout and psychological distress. At the core of unhealthy dependence is the inability of one person to function or thrive independently without constantly relying on others for emotional, financial, or psychological support. This kind of dependence often involves an imbalance, where one person is constantly giving while the other is always taking, without offering anything in return. The Stoic perspective on self-sufficiency. Stoicism teaches that we must cultivate self-sufficiency and resilience in all aspects of our lives. The Stoics believed that the pursuit of happiness lies within ourselves, not in external things or other people. Seneca, one of the great Stoic philosophers, wrote, "A man is not good because he does good things, but because his soul is in harmony with his own principles." This highlights the importance of inner strength and independence. For the Stoics, personal growth is paramount, and being dependent on someone else for emotional or material support contradicts the Stoic ideal of autonomy. Signs of unhealthy dependence. Unhealthy dependence can manifest in a variety of ways. In some cases, a friend or family member may rely on you for constant emotional validation, turning to you whenever they feel insecure or upset, but never offering support in return. In other situations, there may be financial or social dependence, where someone continually asks for favors, resources, or assistance without any intention of reciprocating. Recognizing unhealthy dependence is essential for maintaining healthy boundaries. The Stoics emphasize the importance of maintaining control over our own lives, and dependence on others for our well-being violates this principle. When we are overly reliant on others, we hand over control of our emotional state, leaving ourselves vulnerable to manipulation and exploitation. The psychological toll of unhealthy dependence can have serious psychological consequences for both parties involved. For the person being depended upon, it can lead to feelings of frustration, burnout, and resentment. You may start to feel as though you're being used, or that your efforts are not appreciated. Over time, this emotional drain can lead to stress, anxiety, and even depression. On the other hand, the person who is overly dependent can also suffer from feelings of worthlessness, inadequacy, and insecurity. They may struggle with their own self-esteem and feel unable to cope with life's challenges without relying on others. This cycle of dependence can stifle their personal growth and hinder their ability to develop emotional resilience. The Stoic solution to unhealthy dependence. In Stoic philosophy, the key to overcoming unhealthy dependence is to cultivate self-sufficiency. This means not relying on others to fill our emotional or psychological voids, but instead finding strength within ourselves. Stoics advocate for the practice of self-reflection, mindfulness, and emotional regulation. When we begin to rely on our own internal resources, we stop outsourcing our happiness and well-being to others. Setting boundaries. A fundamental Stoic practice is setting boundaries to protect your peace. If someone in your life is excessively dependent on you, it's crucial to establish clear limits. This doesn't mean abandoning the person, but it means recognizing the need to maintain your own emotional and psychological health. Stoics encourage us to assess our relationships through a lens of rationality, asking whether they are promoting our well-being or draining us. If the relationship is imbalanced, it may be time to reevaluate it and, if necessary, step away to regain your sense of independence. Helping others without enabling dependence. Stoicism does not suggest that we should ignore or neglect those who depend on us. In fact, helping others is a key part of Stoic virtue. However, Stoic philosophers argue that we should help others in a way that empowers them rather than creating a sense of dependency. For example, offering support or guidance that encourages self-reliance and self-improvement aligns with Stoic values, as it enables others to grow and develop their own internal strength. The importance of emotional independence. At the heart of Stoic philosophy is the principle of emotional independence. Stoicism teaches that we should not allow external factors, such as the opinions or actions of others, to dictate our emotional state. When we become emotionally dependent on others, we surrender this control and become vulnerable to being hurt or disappointed. To maintain emotional stability, we must learn to detach our happiness from the approval or validation of others. The role of self-reflection. One of the primary tools in Stoic philosophy is self-reflection. By regularly examining our actions, relationships, and emotions, we can gain clarity about whether we are becoming too dependent on others. Through this practice, we can identify the areas in which we need to develop more emotional resilience and self-sufficiency. The Stoics believed that personal growth is a lifelong journey, And by practicing self-reflection, we can continually improve our emotional and psychological well-being. Unhealthy dependence is a destructive force in relationships, and it undermines both personal growth and emotional health. 4. Failure to respect boundaries. Boundaries are the invisible lines that protect our personal space, emotional health, and mental well-being. They define what is acceptable in our relationships and what is not. When these boundaries are not respected, it can cause feelings of violation, discomfort, and emotional distress. Stoicism teaches us to value our mental peace above all else and to be vigilant in guarding it. A fundamental aspect of this is recognizing when someone is violating your boundaries and the wisdom to act decisively in response. The Stoic view on boundaries. For Stoics, maintaining control over our own mind and emotions is the highest form of self-respect. Boundaries are a necessary part of protecting this control. According to Marcus Aurelius, if someone is able to hurt you, it is not the action itself that causes the pain, but your own response to it. In this way, boundaries are not just external lines. They are internal agreements about what we are willing to accept from others. When others fail to respect those boundaries, they are essentially disregarding our autonomy and compromising our peace of mind. Recognizing boundary violations. Boundaries are often subtle. They are not always as overt as someone physically invading your space, but can also be emotional, psychological, or intellectual. For example, a friend who constantly interrupts you when you speak, or a family member who belittles your opinions, is violating your boundaries. Similarly, when someone expects constant availability, either for emotional support or physical presence, without considering your needs or time, this is a form of boundary violation. The emotional impact of boundary violations, the impact of someone failing to respect your boundaries, is significant. At first, it may seem small. A friend or family member calls you late at night when you've asked for privacy or cancels plans at the last minute repeatedly. Over time, these violations accumulate and erode your emotional well-being. The feelings of resentment and frustration build up, and if not addressed, can lead to emotional burnout, anxiety, and even depression. Stoicism teaches us to process our emotions without letting them control us. While it's natural to feel upset or hurt when someone disrespects your boundaries, Stoics advocate for self-control and rational thinking. Instead of reacting impulsively with anger or sadness, we can use these feelings as signals that something needs to change. This rational response to boundary violations helps maintain our peace and keeps us grounded. The importance of assertiveness in maintaining boundaries. One of the greatest challenges in protecting our boundaries is learning to assert them confidently. Many people struggle with assertiveness because they fear conflict, rejection, or hurting the other person's feelings. However, Stoicism emphasizes that we are not responsible for how others feel when we assert our boundaries. The key is to communicate with clarity and without guilt. Marcus Aurelius famously said, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." By standing firm in our boundaries, we reinforce the value of self-respect and preserve our peace. Why people fail to respect boundaries. There are many reasons why people might fail to respect your boundaries. Sometimes, it's a lack of awareness. They might not even realize they're overstepping. Other times, it could be a conscious disregard for your needs, especially if they feel entitled to your time or attention. In some cases, People with narcissistic traits or emotional immaturity might disregard boundaries out of a sense of entitlement or manipulation. In these situations, it's important to recognize that the issue is not your boundaries, but the other person's inability or unwillingness to respect them. Stoicism teaches that we cannot control the actions of others, but we have the power to control our response. This means that when boundaries are repeatedly violated, we have the right to detach and protect our emotional state. The Stoic approach to boundary violations. The Stoic response to boundary violations is grounded in self-awareness and detachment, instead of becoming enmeshed in emotional reactions or guilt. Stoicism teaches us to detach our sense of self from the other person's behavior. We must learn to protect our peace, not through avoidance or anger, but through rational thinking and action. Seneca wrote, "No man is free who is not master of himself." This means that when someone continuously disrespects your boundaries, you are not free to enjoy peace or contentment. Recognizing this, Stoicism empowers us to take deliberate action to protect ourselves, whether by having a calm, assertive conversation, setting clearer limits, or, if necessary, distancing ourselves from the person altogether. Taking action to protect your boundaries. There are several ways to protect your boundaries in relationships. First, clearly define them for yourself. What are you willing to accept? And what are you not willing to tolerate? Once your boundaries are clear, communicate them with kindness and firmness to others. This can involve saying no when necessary, redirecting conversations, or removing yourself from situations that feel uncomfortable or disrespectful. If someone repeatedly disregards your boundaries, consider whether this is a pattern of behavior that is likely to change. Stoicism reminds us to focus on what we can control, our own actions and responses. If the other person continues to ignore your needs, it may be time to distance yourself from them for your own emotional well-being. The role of self-reflection in boundary maintenance. Self-reflection is an important tool for evaluating whether our boundaries are being respected. If you find yourself feeling increasingly drained or resentful in certain relationships, it's essential to assess the root cause. Is the issue a violation of your boundaries? Or are you perhaps not asserting them clearly enough? Regular self-reflection allows us to identify patterns of boundary violations and take proactive steps to address them before they escalate. The failure to respect boundaries is a significant sign that a relationship may need to be reassessed or even ended. Stoicism teaches us that we are responsible for our own peace and well-being, and that includes protecting our boundaries. By setting clear limits, asserting them with confidence, and taking action when necessary, we maintain control over our emotional and psychological state. This Stoic approach allows us to preserve our dignity and avoid unnecessary emotional turmoil, ensuring that our relationships are built on respect, mutual understanding, and personal growth. 5. Consistently negative energy. Life is a journey full of ups and downs, but some people seem to carry a cloud of negativity wherever they go. Whether it's constant complaining, pessimism, or a focus on the problems rather than solutions, consistently negative energy can drain the life force out of us. Stoicism teaches us that we have the power to control our responses to external circumstances. But that doesn't mean we should let others' negativity infiltrate our mental state. The Stoic perspective on negative energy. Stoics, like Epictetus and Marcus Aurelius, were masters of self-control and mental fortitude. They taught that external events are beyond our control, but how we respond to them is entirely within our power. In the same way, the negative energy of others can be seen as an external event. While we cannot always control the negative attitudes or behaviors of others, we can control how we let them affect us. Marcus Aurelius famously wrote, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." This means that when we surround ourselves with negativity, we are allowing those external forces to shape our inner state. By choosing not to engage with negative energy, we protect our peace and maintain control over our thoughts. The impact of negative energy on our well-being, constant exposure to negativity, can take a serious toll on our emotional and mental health. It creates an environment where we start to internalize pessimism and adopt a negative worldview. This doesn't happen overnight. It's a slow, subtle process. At first, we may try to help or offer solutions, but when the negativity continues, it begins to wear us down. Over time, we may become more anxious, stressed, or even depressed as a result of being constantly surrounded by negativity. Stoicism teaches that we must maintain inner peace, regardless of external circumstances. If we allow ourselves to be dragged into negativity, we are no longer in control of our mental and emotional states. We allow the negativity of others to govern our mood and outlook on life. This is why it's so important to identify the signs of consistently negative energy and take steps to protect our peace. How to recognize consistently negative energy. Negative energy isn't always easy to spot. It often starts with small complaints or frustrations, but can escalate over time. One of the most obvious signs is that the person seems to always focus on what's wrong with the world or with their life. Every conversation, no matter how small, seems to revolve around complaints, grievances, or negative assumptions. Another sign is a lack of positivity or optimism. If someone consistently points out the worst-case scenario, offers no solutions, and refuses to acknowledge any positives, they are likely bringing negative energy into your life. This type of behavior is not only draining but also discouraging. It can make you question your own mindset and beliefs as the negative energy begins to infect your own thoughts. The importance of emotional detachment. Stoicism teaches the practice of emotional detachment, or the ability to separate our emotions from external events. This doesn't mean that we suppress our feelings or ignore the feelings of others, but rather that we learn to maintain emotional balance despite outside influences. When dealing with consistently negative individuals, detachment allows us to listen without being emotionally affected by their negativity. For example, instead of getting caught up in someone's constant complaints, we can simply acknowledge their feelings without internalizing them. We don't have to agree with them, nor do we need to allow their negativity to shape our own outlook. Emotional detachment doesn't mean becoming cold or distant. It means maintaining a healthy distance from negativity to protect our peace. How to deal with negative people using Stoic philosophy. When faced with negative individuals, Stoic philosophy encourages us to approach the situation with wisdom and compassion, but without compromising our own peace. There are several Stoic techniques we can use to deal with negativity effectively. Acknowledge the source of negativity. Understanding the root cause of someone's negative behavior can help you remain empathetic. Are they experiencing personal struggles? Are they projecting their insecurities onto you? While this doesn't mean tolerating harmful behavior, it can give you the perspective to respond calmly rather than react emotionally. Maintain boundaries. Protecting your own energy is crucial. If someone's negativity is consistently draining you, it's important to set boundaries. This could mean limiting the time you spend with them, redirecting the conversation to more positive topics, or even distancing yourself if their negativity becomes overwhelming. Focus on what you can control. According to Stoicism, we should focus only on what is within our control. We cannot change the attitude of others, but we can control how we react. Instead of trying to change the negative person, focus on how you maintain your inner peace. This could involve practicing gratitude, surrounding yourself with positive influences, or practicing mindfulness to counteract the effects of negative energy. How to protect yourself from negative energy. It is important to recognize that we are not obligated to absorb or engage with negative energy, especially when it is not constructive. Protecting yourself from negativity involves being proactive in your environment. Surround yourself with positive, uplifting people who inspire you and encourage personal growth. By prioritizing relationships that nourish your soul, you create a buffer against the negative influences that may try to seep into your life. The role of self-care in protecting your peace. Self-care is an essential part of Stoic philosophy. Taking time for yourself to recharge, reflect, and practice gratitude helps you to build emotional resilience. When you engage in self-care practices, whether it's journaling, meditating, exercising, or spending time in nature, you strengthen your ability to protect yourself from external negativity. Self-care is not an indulgence. It is an act of self-respect and preservation. Consistently, negative energy can have a significant impact on your well-being, but Stoic philosophy provides us with the tools to deal with it effectively. By recognizing negativity for what it is and responding with detachment, assertiveness, and emotional resilience, we can protect our peace and maintain control over our thoughts and emotions. Surrounding ourselves with positive influences and practicing self-care will ensure that we don't let the negativity of others dictate our emotional state. The Stoic way of living encourages us to focus on what we can control and to cultivate peace from within, regardless of the external forces that may try to disrupt it. 6. Lack of mutual growth. Relationships are meant to be a source of support, encouragement, and growth. Whether they are friendships, family bonds, or romantic connections, the best relationships challenge us to become better versions of ourselves. However, when a relationship becomes stagnant, where one person is growing and evolving while the other is not, it can create an imbalance that leads to emotional disconnection and dissatisfaction. The Stoic ideal of constant growth. Stoicism teaches that life is a journey of constant improvement. The Stoics believed that we should always strive to become better individuals by cultivating virtues such as wisdom, courage, and temperance. According to Marcus Aurelius, the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. This means that the challenges we face in relationships, as difficult as they may be, can be opportunities for growth if we approach them with the right mindset. However, Stoicism also recognizes that not all relationships are conducive to personal growth. If a relationship is preventing you from becoming the best version of yourself, or if you feel like you are constantly stuck while the other person remains unchanged, it may be time to reassess the connection. The dangers of staying in stagnant relationships. A stagnant relationship can lead to emotional burnout, frustration, and a sense of being stuck. If one person in the relationship is constantly evolving, learning new things, taking on new challenges, and growing emotionally and intellectually while the other remains in a state of complacency or even regression, it can lead to a deep sense of dissatisfaction. Over time, the person who is growing may feel unsupported or even resentful of the lack of shared progress. From a Stoic perspective, This stagnation can be viewed as a failure to live in accordance with nature. The Stoics believed that everything in life should be moving toward improvement and development, and relationships should foster this process. If a relationship no longer serves this purpose, it becomes detrimental to both individuals involved. How to recognize a lack of mutual growth. One of the key signs that a relationship may no longer be conducive to mutual growth is when one person feels as though they are constantly carrying the weight of the relationship. This might manifest in the form of emotional labor, where one person is always giving, supporting, and helping the other, while the other person contributes very little. In healthy relationships, there is a balance of give and take, where both individuals help each other grow and evolve. Another sign is when the relationship feels like an obstacle rather than an encouragement to personal development. If one person constantly discourages the other from pursuing their goals or passions, or if the relationship becomes a source of constant drama, it can prevent both individuals from moving forward. Stoic philosophy teaches that we should surround ourselves with people who inspire us to grow, not those who keep us in a state of stagnation. The importance of self-reflection. Self-reflection is a cornerstone of Stoic practice. By regularly reflecting on our values, goals, and the relationships in our lives, we can gain clarity about whether a particular relationship is helping us move forward or holding us back. Marcus Aurelius, in his meditations, frequently reflects on his own behavior and the relationships in his life, constantly seeking ways to improve himself. This practice of self-reflection is essential when assessing whether a relationship is still contributing to our growth. How to approach the decision to cut ties. If you realize that a relationship is no longer promoting mutual growth, the next step is to evaluate whether it's worth continuing. The Stoics were not advocates of holding on to relationships out of guilt or obligation. They believed that we should act in accordance with reason, which means evaluating the value of a relationship based on how it aligns with our values and contributes to our well-being. If a relationship no longer serves the purpose of mutual growth, it may be necessary to step away from it. This decision does not have to be made in anger or bitterness. Instead, it should come from a place of self-awareness and a commitment to personal development. By cutting ties with relationships that hinder growth, we create space for healthier, more supportive connections that encourage us to be the best version of ourselves. How to cut ties with compassion. Stoicism encourages us to act with dignity and compassion, even when making difficult decisions. When cutting ties with someone who is no longer contributing to your growth, it's important to do so in a way that respects both yourself and the other person. This doesn't mean allowing toxic behavior to continue, but rather making the decision to move on with grace. One Stoic approach is to use the practice of amor fati, or the love of fate. This means accepting that all relationships, whether they are positive or negative, serve a purpose in our lives. If a relationship has run its course and is no longer helping you grow, you can accept this with gratitude, knowing that it has served its purpose. Cutting ties in this way allows you to release any guilt or regret, recognizing that it's a natural part of life's process of growth. The role of virtue in mutual growth. In Stoic philosophy, virtue is the ultimate goal of life. Virtue encompasses wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance qualities that help us navigate relationships and life itself. A relationship that fosters mutual growth should be built on these virtues, encouraging both individuals to become more virtuous over time. When a relationship ceases to support these values, it may no longer be serving its true purpose. Mutual growth is one of the most important aspects of any healthy relationship. 7. Unresolved conflict. Unresolved conflicts in relationships can weigh heavily on your emotional well-being. Stoicism teaches that peace of mind is essential for a fulfilled life, and that constant inner turmoil, particularly caused by unresolved issues with others, can interfere with our capacity for rational thought, happiness, and growth. A relationship that is riddled with ongoing unresolved conflicts can be a constant drain, both mentally and emotionally. The Stoic perspective on conflict. Stoic philosophers like Marcus Aurelius and Epictetus believed that while we cannot control the actions of others, we can control how we respond to these actions. In his meditations, Marcus Aurelius frequently reflects on how external events, including interpersonal conflicts, are outside of his control, and that he must maintain composure and reason in the face of them. He writes, "When someone does you wrong, you may find yourself upset, but remember that you are in control of your reaction. When conflict remains unresolved, it becomes like a festering wound. It continues to affect both individuals involved, often causing long-term damage." Stoicism suggests that we must be mindful of our emotional reactions and make sure not to allow unresolved conflicts to disturb our mental peace. If these conflicts cannot be resolved in a constructive manner, or if they have become a repetitive cycle without progress, the Stoic response would be to detach from the situation. How unresolved conflict affects relationships. Unresolved conflict creates emotional distance and erodes trust. When you continuously encounter unresolved issues with someone, your perception of the relationship shifts from one of partnership and understanding to one of frustration and resentment. Over time, this can undermine the foundation of the relationship, even if there are moments of reconciliation. The lack of closure or resolution leaves a lingering tension that becomes exhausting to manage. Moreover, these unresolved conflicts often lead to passive-aggressive behavior, avoidant actions, or an unhealthy power dynamic within the relationship. Each person may begin to withhold or avoid certain behaviors to protect themselves from emotional pain, rather than addressing the root cause of the issue. This avoidance creates a cycle of disconnection that is difficult to break. The importance of resolving conflicts. Stoicism emphasizes the importance of maintaining mental clarity and emotional control, even in the face of challenging situations. Epictetus argued that we should strive to resolve conflicts when possible, as they can otherwise become a source of distraction that prevents us from living in accordance with nature. It is not the things themselves that disturb us, but our opinions about them, he famously said, pointing out that conflicts arise when we let our emotions cloud our judgment. However, Stoicism also teaches that not all conflicts are worth engaging with. Some issues might be beyond repair, especially if they involve behavior that is toxic or manipulative. In such cases, it may be healthier to step away from the relationship instead of continuing to fight a losing battle. Recognizing when it's time to step away when dealing with unresolved conflicts. It's important to recognize whether the conflict is something that can be addressed through communication and understanding, or whether it has become a pattern that repeats itself without any real resolution. If the issue remains constant despite efforts to resolve it, it might be a sign that the relationship has reached a point of irreparable damage. Stoic philosophers also advised recognizing when a relationship causes harm to our rationality or peace of mind. If the conflict prevents both individuals from functioning as rational beings, or if the relationship has become a source of emotional turmoil with no hope of resolution, it might be time to consider cutting ties. In such cases, Stoicism encourages us to act with courage, standing by the decision to protect our emotional well-being, even if it means severing ties. The role of acceptance in letting go. Acceptance is a key Stoic principle that can help guide us through the process of cutting ties due to unresolved conflict. Acceptance doesn't mean resignation or passivity, but rather recognizing what is beyond our control and releasing attachment to outcomes that no longer serve us. As Seneca put it, it is not the problems themselves that cause distress, but how we choose to respond to them. In the context of unresolved conflict, acceptance allows us to acknowledge that the relationship may no longer be constructive and that cutting ties is a form of self-preservation. 8. Constant manipulation. Manipulation is one of the most insidious behaviors in any relationship, whether it involves family, friends, or romantic partners. Manipulation often involves the use of deceit, guilt, tripping, or emotional blackmail to control someone's thoughts, feelings, or actions. The Stoic view on manipulation is clear. It undermines one's sense of personal integrity, and it violates the core principles of respect, self-control, and rational thought. What is manipulation? Manipulation is a tactic used by individuals to gain control over others by subtly influencing their decisions or behaviors for personal gain. This often happens through emotional appeals, where the manipulator uses guilt, fear, or a sense of obligation to make others act in ways that they otherwise wouldn't. For example, someone might say, "If you really cared about me, you would do this for me. Or you owe me this, because I've always been there for you." Such tactics aim to exploit your emotions and make you feel as though you are in debt or obligated to do something, even when it goes against your best interests. Stoicism's take on manipulation. From a Stoic perspective, manipulation is a direct attack on our ability to maintain control over our emotions and decisions. Stoic philosophers like Epictetus and Marcus Aurelius taught that we should be free from external influences and focus on what is within our control, particularly our thoughts and actions. When someone manipulates us, they are attempting to gain control over something that is fundamentally ours, our emotions and decisions. Epictetus advises us to be aware of how external factors, such as the actions of others, influence our internal state. He famously said, "We are not disturbed by what happens to us, but by our thoughts about what happens." This advice directly applies to manipulation. If we allow ourselves to be manipulated, it is because we have allowed someone else to influence our thoughts and emotions. Stoicism teaches that we should guard our internal state from such interference and act according to our rational principles, not out of emotional coercion. Recognizing manipulative behavior. Identifying manipulation can be tricky because it often starts subtly and may not always be overt. Manipulative individuals can present themselves as caring, loving, or supportive, which can make it difficult to see their true intentions. However, there are several signs that someone is trying to manipulate you. Guilt, tripping. Manipulators often make you feel guilty for not meeting their needs or desires, even if it means compromising your own well-being. Playing the victim. Manipulators may exaggerate their problems or hardships to make you feel responsible for their emotions or actions. Gaslighting. This involves making you doubt your perception of reality, often by denying things they've said or done, or making you feel as though you're overreacting. Flattery and praise. Manipulators may use excessive praise or flattery to lower your defenses and gain your trust. Ultimatums. They may issue ultimatums, saying things like, "If you don't do this, I'll never talk to you again," to pressure you into doing something. How Stoicism helps in identifying and handling manipulation. Stoicism encourages self-awareness and the cultivation of wisdom, essential for recognizing manipulation. By practicing mindfulness and staying connected to our rational minds, we can notice when someone is attempting to manipulate us. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, reminds us to evaluate the motives of others and not to allow them to disturb our inner peace. If someone's behavior disrupts our rational thinking or peace of mind, we must assess whether they are a positive influence in our lives. Stoicism also advises us to be mindful of the people we associate with. If someone regularly manipulates us, they are undermining our autonomy, and it may be time to cut ties with them. The Stoic response to manipulation. In the face of manipulation, the Stoic response is one of detachment. Stoicism teaches us not to be slaves to our emotions or to the whims of others. The key to handling manipulation is to recognize it for what it is and to detach ourselves from the manipulator's influence. This does not mean we should react with anger or resentment, but rather, we should calmly assess the situation and remove ourselves from it if necessary. A Stoic might respond to manipulation by calmly setting boundaries, saying something like, "I understand your request, but I am not comfortable with this." This assertiveness reflects a firm commitment to maintaining one's rationality and emotional balance. Additionally, the Stoic would focus on maintaining their own virtue, such as wisdom and integrity, rather than succumbing to external pressure. 9. Emotional draining conversations. Emotional draining conversations are those that leave you feeling mentally exhausted, emotionally battered, or burdened with an overwhelming sense of negativity. In relationships, communication is vital, but when conversations continually drain your energy without offering any emotional reciprocity or support, they can become a significant source of distress. Stoicism teaches that we should strive for clarity in our thoughts and peacefulness in our hearts, and that includes the way we engage in conversations. What makes a conversation emotionally draining? An emotionally draining conversation typically involves one-sidedness, where one person monopolizes the dialogue, consistently bringing up negative topics, or using the conversation to complain, vent, or seek validation. The person may dominate the discussion with their own problems or emotions, without showing genuine interest in the other person's feelings, experiences, or needs. This imbalance can leave you feeling depleted and emotionally exhausted. Moreover, some conversations can become emotionally draining because of their repetitive nature. They may constantly revisit the same issues, complaints, or grievances without any resolution or positive shift in the dialogue. When these conversations turn into cycles of negativity, it becomes more difficult to maintain your emotional well-being. Stoicism's view on emotional energy and conversations. Stoicism emphasizes the importance of emotional resilience and self-awareness. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus famously said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." This can apply directly to conversations. While we may not have control over what others say or how they behave, we do have full control over how we respond. If a conversation is emotionally draining, we have the power to manage our reaction by maintaining our inner calm and setting boundaries. In Stoicism, emotional energy is considered a finite resource, and one of the central goals of the philosophy is to preserve this energy for activities that Promote personal growth, peace of mind, and virtue. A conversation that consistently depletes your emotional reserves is a conversation that does not align with Stoic values, which emphasize emotional control, self-sufficiency, and inner peace. Recognizing emotional draining conversations often share several common traits. Here are some signs to look out for. One-sidedness. If the conversation revolves entirely around one person's thoughts, feelings, or problems, with no room for mutual exchange or understanding, it can be draining. Repetitive negative talk. If someone continuously brings up the same issues, problems, or complaints without ever seeking a resolution or showing improvement, it can sap your emotional strength. Absence of empathy. If the other person does not acknowledge your feelings, thoughts, or perspectives, and seems entirely absorbed in their own emotions or struggles, the conversation may feel emotionally draining. No resolution or positive shift. If every conversation seems to end on a negative note, or if there is no shift toward understanding or problem solving. You feeling exhausted and unfulfilled. How to navigate draining conversations using Stoicism. The Stoic approach to emotionally draining conversations involves practicing self-control, detachment, and mindfulness. Here's how Stoicism can guide you in these situations. Setting boundaries. Stoicism teaches us to set boundaries in relationships to protect our emotional well-being. If a conversation is becoming too draining, it is completely appropriate to set a limit on how much time you will spend engaging in it. You can politely excuse yourself or redirect the conversation in a way that benefits both parties. Detachment from negative energy. The Stoic concept of detachment is vital in conversations that drain us emotionally. Detachment doesn't mean disengagement, but it does mean maintaining your inner peace regardless of the external conversation. If someone is speaking in a negative or emotionally overwhelming way, a Stoic would focus on remaining calm and composed, not absorbing or reacting to the negative energy, choosing what to engage with. According to Stoicism, we should only engage in conversations that align with our values and contribute to our peace of mind. If a conversation is not productive, or if it undermines your emotional health, a Stoic might choose to step away from it. By disengaging with negativity, we maintain our focus on what is virtuous and beneficial for our well-being. Responding with compassion, not emotion. Stoics believe in responding to challenges, including difficult conversations, with wisdom and compassion rather than emotional reaction. If you find yourself in an emotionally draining conversation, try to listen with empathy, but avoid getting emotionally entangled. When to cut ties with emotionally draining conversations. There are instances when emotionally draining conversations may signal that the relationship itself is unhealthy. If someone repeatedly engages in conversations that leave you feeling drained, stressed, or anxious, and if they show no interest in improving their communication or acknowledging your emotional needs, it may be time to reconsider your relationship with that person. Stoicism advises us to focus on relationships that promote mutual respect, understanding, and growth. If a relationship is consistently centered around negativity and emotional manipulation, it can undermine your peace of mind and personal development. The Stoics remind us that we must guard our inner peace and not allow others to pull us into cycles of negativity and distress. The Stoic way forward. The Stoic way forward when faced with draining conversations involves setting boundaries and practicing detachment. Stoic philosophers would encourage us to disengage from unproductive and emotionally exhausting exchanges while maintaining our rational composure. They would also remind us to focus on the things we can control: our thoughts, actions, and responses, and let go of the things we cannot, such as the behaviors or emotional states of others. If someone's conversations consistently leave you feeling emotionally depleted, a Stoic would advise that it's not only appropriate but necessary to distance yourself from these exchanges. In doing so, you preserve your energy for pursuits that contribute to your growth, happiness, and well-being. Emotionally draining conversations can take a significant toll on our mental and emotional health, and Stoicism provides us with the tools to navigate these situations with wisdom and clarity. By recognizing when conversations are no longer serving our well-being, setting healthy boundaries, and practicing detachment, we can protect our peace of mind and avoid unnecessary emotional exhaustion. Ultimately, Stoicism encourages us to prioritize our emotional health and engage in relationships that foster growth, mutual respect, and balance. If someone's conversations consistently drain you, it may be time to reassess that relationship and step away in order to preserve your inner peace. At some point in our lives, we all face relationships that no longer serve our best interests. Whether it's family or friends, the bonds we share can be both nourishing and draining. Stoic philosophy teaches us that our inner peace, growth, and rational thinking must come first. While it is hard to admit when it's time to let go, recognizing the signs of toxicity, disrespect, manipulation, or a lack of mutual respect can save us from unnecessary pain and frustration. Why adhering to Stoic principles, we empower ourselves to make these tough decisions without guilt, emotion, or anger clouding our judgment. Remember, Stoicism does not encourage us to sever all ties, but rather to distance ourselves from relationships that hinder our growth or well-being. Cutting ties does not mean abandoning people. It means choosing not to let their actions steal our peace. Life is about surrounding yourself with individuals who contribute positively to your journey, those who challenge you, support you, and allow you to be the best version of yourself. Letting go of relationships that no longer align with this is not a weakness. It's a sign of strength, wisdom, and self-respect. If you found this video insightful and empowering, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and join us on this journey of self-growth and Stoic wisdom. Remember, cutting ties is not about rejecting others. It's about embracing yourself. Share this video with someone who might need the wisdom to make difficult decisions in their own relationships. Stay grounded, stay wise, and let peace guide you. And, as always, remember that your peace and growth come first, no matter who's in your life.